Just a moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our committee chairs meeting. It is Wednesday, November 8th, an unseasonably warm but sunny day across Tennessee. This meeting, of course, is our prep meeting for our board meeting coming up December 12th. Welcome to everyone. A reminder, of course, that this is being live streamed and will be archived on the TBR website. With that, Mariah, why don't you call the roll and let's get started this morning.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. Since this is an electronic meeting, there are 2 questions that need to be answered by regents for the record. First, can the regent simultaneously hear and speak with others participating in the meeting? And second, is the regent alone in the room? If the answer to both questions is yes, the regent can simply answer yes to both questions. Anyone who is not alone should identify any other people present in the room with the regent. When I call your name, please answer these 2 questions. Governor Lee, Regent Apple.
Here and yes to both questions.
Regent Verdine.
Here and yes to both.
Regent Garten.
Here and yes.
Thank you. Regent Gentile. Regent George.
Here and yes to both questions.
Regent Gill.
Here and yes to both questions.
Commissioner Hatcher. Regent Hooper.
Here and yes to both questions.
Regent Kastner. And just a note, Regent Kastner may be joining us just a little later. Regent Pilkington.
Here and yes to both.
Regent Powers.
Here and yes to both.
Madam Chair Reynolds.
Here and yes to both.
Commissioner Reynolds. Regent Roberts.
Here and yes to both.
Regent Spurgeon. Regent Varlin.
Here and yes to both.
And Regent White.
Here and yes to both.
Madam Chair, your board is assembled.
Excellent. You all are familiar to this next step by now. Since we are meeting electronically, this is, of course, the most efficient way, the most economic way for us to perform a timely review of some things that, as I mentioned, will be on our quarterly agenda next month. Given that this necessity to meet electronically is a non-controversial and routine item, I would propose that the necessity to meet electronically be adopted by unanimous consent. But anyone who wants to have an individual vote on this may, of course, feel free to object, in which case we will have a roll call vote. If there is no objection, this necessity to meet electronically then would be adopted by unanimous consent. Do I hear any objection? Hearing none, this necessity is adopted. Thank you all. Well, Chancellor, there is a lot going on. Any opening remarks from your end for the team today?
Well, there is a lot going on, much of which we have discussed, but just as a few reminders, you have gotten information from Mariah letting you know that the governor's budget hearing is this afternoon. It will be held at 1:30. If you didn't receive the link, Marianne or Mariah, either one can provide that for you, so just let them know. Just an update on our ever-going saga of presidential searches. We are in various stages at many of our colleges. TCAT Shelbyville, you voted. We had the special call meeting for Mr. Jimmy Wright. He will begin his duties December 1st. TCAT Dixon, we also had we will have a special call meeting on November the 15th, where I will be recommending to you Laura Travis. Laura currently serves as the vice president at TCAT Dixon and was the unanimous choice by the committee to be moved forward. Also, she's already had her on-campus public interview, and I want to thank our Vice Chair Regent Emily Reynolds for going there and moderating that, and also for serving as chair for this search, along with Regent Powers and Regent Pilkington. For TCAT Henry Carroll, y'all are aware that President Huffman plans to retire in April of 2024. The search committee is being chaired by Regent Nisha Powers and joined by Regent Pilkerton and George, as well as the faculty and staff and community members. The committee met last week for their first orientation session, and they will meet again on November 30th for their prospect review meeting, with a recommendation expected to come forward early in 2024. TCAT Harriman, President Dennis Turpin, recently announced her plans to retire at the end of February of 24. Regent Varlin agreed to serve as chair for this search committee. Accompanying her will be Regents Burdine and Roberts, again, as well as faculty, staff, and community members. Also, a recommendation for this president's position we anticipate will be available for vote again in early of 2024. Cleveland State Community College, where Ray Brooks is currently serving as our interim president. The search is being chaired by Regent Danny Varlin, who has graciously been attending those meetings in person at this point. We're very thankful for that. She's also being accompanied by Regent Miles Burdine and Regent Tom White. A public forum was held on October 26th, and the committee met for their orientation on October 26th as well. The position has been posted, and the committee will begin to review applications in January. We expect to have a new president in place sometime in the April-May timeframe, again, depending on the individual selected and when they can begin. Volunteer State Community College, the search committee there is being chaired by Vice Chair Emily Reynolds. Regents Apple and Kastner agreed to serve on this committee, and we are in the process of adding the remaining members to the committee, and we anticipate a new president to be in place there as of July 1. We do plan to recognize at our board meeting in December the presidents who have retired or will retire by spring of 2023 with resolutions, and a resolution in memoriam of our president, Aretha Montague. Thank you, Madam Chair. That brings us up to date on all of the presidential searches we've got going on, and I'm pretty sure this must set some kind of record for the number going on at one time.
No kidding. It's a lot. So for your budget hearing this afternoon, are you up with UT and the LGIs like usual?
It is the usual format. We will start off with THEC. Stephen Gentile will lead us off with the overall budget. I go second to talk about things specific to TBR. There are a few questions that they put forward that they would like for us to answer, as you can imagine, primarily about the money that they've given us in the past. So that will be the topic of discussion.
Okay, very good. We know you will represent us well, but thank you.
Our fingers crossed.
Exact. Thank you. No concerns there, but I know it's a lot of pressure, but thank you so much. And speaking of updates on money we have been given in the past, do you want to set us up for our conversation with Dick and Jeff around our capital projects update?
Absolutely. So pleased to have Dick Tracy and Jeff Holmes present to you today the capital projects update and where we are with this. If you'll recall, we did an update to some of our elected officials and our constitutional officers about a month ago, so that they could see where we are and that they knew that we were what I call a remarkable step in this process. Thanks to the two gentlemen you're about to hear from and all of the people that are supporting this project in their office, we are moving at a rate that I think is probably unheard of. Not only for state government is it unheard of, but I think this is pretty remarkable even if we were in private industry. So Dick and Jeff, if I can turn it over to you to give the board a great update on where we are with our projects.
Yes, thank you, Chancellor. First, I'll give you a brief on the Blue Oval City, on where we are on that project. And I think we'll show you a video, but right now the project's on schedule to be substantially completed in May. We have worked with the city of Stanton. They're running water and sewer. They've bid that out. They're awarding contracts. So they'll be extending water and sewer from the city of Stanton to our site to be completed in April. We're working with Ford, part of the space in the building. We're going to complete early to allow Ford the ability to bring in some of their equipment in March, as early as probably March the 1st. We were able to get $9.5 million in the budget last year for equipment. We've already issued a package for the furniture and equipment for the offices and classrooms. That's out on the street now, working with Heath on the other equipment and Ford, the equipment that'll support the programs. We have power on at the building. We have the building, the heat and air is on in the building. We're actually right now they're installing drywall in the inside and doing the fit out. So if you can see in the picture, we've paved the area, and that was our goal, so that as the winter comes, it won't have any impact on the site. So if you could, I guess, can you run the video? There we go. So this is where we are on the in the building. They've completed the roofing. There's a small piece that they were finishing up on the metal portion, the arch portion of the building. As you can see, we've got the area paved. There was some of it we've completed the soil cement, and then getting ready to pave the rest of the building. So right now, like I say, we've got the building dried in, got the systems on, and so we're able to work through the winter. That's, if there's no other questions, to get on to what the chancellor was talking about, our $1 billion. I think what we reported to you that our goal was to get to the building commission in July, get all our designers selected, get the project started, and then begin the process of issuing the RFPs for CMs. We've done that. I had calls, I think, from CMs till about 6 o'clock last night. So I'm going to turn it over to General Holmes, and he can tell you how we're tracking on our project. So, Jeff.
Thanks, Dick. Good morning, Regents. Madam Chair, Chancellor, I will just kind of give you a 10,000 foot level, because I know you've given you regular updates. So I'll just kind of catch up. As Dick said, our phase that we're in now is issuing the RFPs to get the construction managers on board. We've got 6 of those that are on the street, and then we'll follow up with the remainder of those the first week of December, with the expectation to have all construction managers as part of the design team by the 2nd week of January. That hits the schedule that we had projected a year ago. And those beautiful words, we're on schedule and in budget, are still applicable of where we're at. In fact, we could have pushed all of these RFPs out. We have them prepared, and we could have pushed them out last week. We chose not to, because we want the private sector to take a couple of swings at these projects, multiple projects in all the regions. So we want them to propose and then know if they were successful or not, so that they can get back up to the plate and swing at some more. So really, we could have accelerated this, but we chose not to let the private sector absorb multiple opportunities to compete for these projects. Everything else is flowing very well. There's some things, as the Chancellor mentioned, I don't think they're unheard of or anything, but I think they're definitely points of emphasis in the fact that we executed these design teams within 2 months from the funding. We're on track to have all of the designs completed within a year of securing funding. And when I say designs completed, that means that they've completed through design development, which means that they have a floor plan, they have a rendering, they have materials chosen. We have a good, clear picture of the budget. All of that is on schedule to be completed this year. And then we'll start rolling out the construction, breaking ground. We also have, last slide I think I put up there, well, you see it now. This is a tracker that shows the milestone dates for each project. The first thing is, and I mentioned design development. That'll go to the State Building Commission and obviously the Chancellor and to you to review and kind of take a look at what those buildings are going to look like in the floor plans. Also, it presents an opportunity for some press issuing press releases and media updates and things of that nature, because as I said, you'll have the design completed. And then starting construction, breaking ground. We also have opportunities. We expect to execute early release packages, again, part of the original plan, so that we can get long lead items procured, as well as start initial phases of the multi-phase projects, and so that we'll sequence these and could have multiple ribbon cuttings throughout the course of the project duration. Madam Chair, I'll pause to see if there are any questions.
As we pause and while folks think on their questions to both the Chancellor's update and the capital projects, I want to acknowledge that Regent Kastner has joined us. And Mariah, would you please ask him our 2 questions?
Hi, good morning, Regent Kastner. Thank you for joining. Since this is an electronic meeting, just for the record, could you kindly confirm that you can hear and speak with others in the meeting and confirm that you're alone in the room?
Yes and yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Regent Kastner. Well, questions for Chancellor Dick or Jeff, as Jeff said, about those beautiful words, on schedule and on budget.
Chair Reynolds, this is Mark Gill. I have a question that actually went back a little earlier when Dick was up and didn't get in. Are you all seeing any changes from Ford, given the turmoil that's going on with the EVs in the domestic auto industry?
I mean, I've had discussions, at the level we're talking, and right now they haven't altered any of their plans for the plant. They or SK, I mean, they're continuing, I think, forward as planned.
Yeah, just a little bit extra on that. There has been a little bit of a push out on the train the trainer that we've been doing, but just by a couple of months. There's been no stopping, but they have pushed their schedule just a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
And I see Regent Powers has a hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a couple of quick questions. The last presentation with the slide, there was mention that the all design would be completed, and then the phrase of securing funding. Is there another step in that process that we still have to go through before dollars are being allocated?
Dick, I'll jump in. No, ma'am, there's not. We have the funding for the equipment, the construction, the soft costs, which are design fees, surveying. Everything has been secured. It's just a good benchmark to illustrate that we were prepared to receive this money. We had heard a number of speculative comments saying that there's no way we could spend this money in 10 years, things of that nature. Private sector can't handle it. We remember those things. So we're always trying to show that those were miscalculated and misinformed. So we take a lot of pride in that. Subject to further question.
Well, then I'm glad I brought it to the top to discuss, so you could say that the way that you just did. That's superb. I'm first thrilled that things are on schedule, and from coming from a design perspective, when those things like this big go smoothly, it's a little bit of a miracle. So I'm thrilled about that. The one question I was going to ask too, and I think this is going to be too much to ask for, but I'll ask it anyway, and you can turn me down. But given that, several of these projects are in different regions for different regions, IONS, and for different regents, ENTS, would it be possible for us to have a little bit more detail? I know that's going to take a lot of effort to say, here's kind of like for us, Memphis is a big one for us right now, obviously, in the West. Have a little bit more detail, like a page report or something that just says, here's what's happening, here are the dates you need to look for, a little bit more drill down in this chart, just to kind of help us know what's going on in our areas. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead,
I
Dick.
think Jeff and I have been having that discussion. What we're, in our spare time, what we're looking at, we're looking at taking the map that we have and basically making that map live, where if you go to the map that you can click on if you see the map that we showed originally, if you go over that particular project, what we want to be able to do is keep the current information on it tell you the project, it'll tell you the dates, give us where we are in the process. So I think I think we want that available to everybody, in the private sector if they want to have that information. So we track that information through our pits. We just need to figure out how to tie that in and have that available. We do have a lot of information, and we can roll that out to you that we already have. We have the brief descriptions the things that we include in the RFPs to give the CMs, what our projected schedule is, the budgets and all that. But like I say, we're trying to figure out a way that we can keep this live so that if somebody asks you a question about a project, you can go look at it, and we can show we're scheduling the construction start, the groundbreaking, and that type of thing. We had a meeting with Kim and her group. Again, we feel strongly that we need to make sure that the governor gets a lot of information and stays up to speed on this. So we're looking at planning out way out, but we're looking at how we're going to schedule the groundbreakings, ribbon cuttings, which ones are critical to him, which ones are critical legislators, so that we can meet their schedules. And that takes a lot of coordination. We have in what Jeff's put together, where we'll be able to complete both of those. Some may want to have one event, not the other, both. So we're working with Kim and her group. We're trying to gather all that information. So again, we can keep everybody up to speed on this without where the information can be real time.
Yeah, and Dick, thanks for that. And I think, Mariah, if you wouldn't mind just putting together a list of the projects for each region that's in their area, that could be step one, just so that they know which ones they're are the ones in there. The map will be great information once it's up and running and they get that live. But
yeah, we can give
the list to you to begin with.
Yeah,
so you know exactly which
we can go ahead and get out. If she'll give us the list, we can get that out to you. We can push you out some information. We have a lot of information, so if she'll give us the list of, we can get that information that we have out to you quickly. I mean, to give you up where we are today. Yeah.
That would be so great. I think that's really exactly what I was looking for, and I knew it was burdensome to you all that you're doing. I mean, this is amazing to be able to have that information captured and be so transparent with it. So I just really appreciate everything that you all are doing. And, just the phase one, I saw where you have the early packages, early release. So like if there's a site package that's going out in Memphis or something, it's just nice to know those things in advance. So I just really, really appreciate it. Thank you all so much.
Todd, have you had your hand up?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Sorry I was 3 minutes late. Dick and Jeff, it sounds like you guys are doing a great job. So thank you for that. Really appreciate the level of organization and order that you're bringing to this. And I may have asked you this question once before. If I have, I apologize. When you go to these CMs, are these going to be true construction manager roles, or will we have like a cost plus contract form with a guaranteed max price? I've forgotten exactly what form of contract you're pursuing here.
Yes, what we do is we do a CMGC basically at risk. So we have a CM. So how we handle it is that we don't issue the GMP until we basically bid out the project, because the cost, in my position, the cost is the cost. If you try to get to do a GMP at DDP, they're going to have to pad their numbers. You still have those. And so what we do is we bring the CM on board during design. We ask them and as an architect, and Jeff will say the same thing, architects are not good with their time. We make the CM put together basically the control schedule, And so they dictate to the designer when he has to have the documents out for early packages and the impact if he doesn't. So we will do multiple. We can do multiple packages, and one of the things we'll continue to is, in talking to CMs, we're seeing some softening of the market, especially coming up in next year workload. There's still a strain on the labor force, especially on the sub-market. And there's also a continued backlog on some of the systems equipments. Electrical is going to be out there for a while. So what we're looking at doing is the early packages, we may award them basically the GMP, the initial GMP would only order the electrical switchgear, right? Because it's got a year lead time. Their contract, we don't give them a notice to proceed, but we allow them to award that. The next step may be the site package, could be a demo package. And so we bring them in and help them tell us what we need to get out quickly to make sure we stay on schedule.
So yes, I think you're telling me, I think what I'm hearing is that at certain stages there are GMP, guaranteed max prices, or hard bids, I would say, for different segments. And so the private sector that's doing this work, that they are at risk to making good on their promises. It's just not all up front.
That is correct.
That sounds like a great approach. And as you know, what I'm seeing nationally is when, for general contractors, their nightmares, they have subcontractors going bust because the labor market is so tight. So it sounds like
and we make them, it's all open book. So they go out and bid the trade bids. They have to show us the trade bids. They have to, and then when they choose one, they don't have to take the lowest one. They have to tell us why they don't. It's like you're saying, they're saying this guy, we've looked at it, he's got issues with his bonds, whatever. And so they'll reject that. So they'll go vet the trade bids. A lot of the contractors, what we get from them now is SubGuard insurance, right? So that if that trade fails, we have the ability for them to pick up and continue working, and we don't have to, stop the project. So we go through a bonding company to get that done. Yeah. So we've been trying to keep those things so that we can keep the project going, protect the cost. And in their bid, we allow them to hold a 3% contractor's contingency within their bid, but we track that. We don't have to approve everything, but anything that for plan busts, issues that they might have missed, they can utilize that. And so, but we track where they spend those dollars.
That's fantastic. My next two questions are really simple. You get 28 projects. How many different architectural firms are involved across those 28?
There may be 26 or 27.
Wow.
Okay.
So right now we probably have, at last count, I probably have contracts with about 100 different architectural engineering, different firms across the state. Okay. And some of those do have multiple contracts.
Gotcha. And then the simplest question, I've forgotten, just roughly, what's the square footage of that Blue Oval City building that we saw the roof on and all that beautiful work?
I believe it's a little over 100,000 square feet.
Okay.
Tell you
it's 120,000 square feet.
Okay, that just puts it in context. Thanks, you guys are doing great. Appreciate you.
Well done. Regent Powers, did you put your hand back up?
I did. I'm sorry. I'll make this my last question. Just curious, along the lines of what Todd just asked about the consultants or even contractors, is there any effort to try to make sure that if it's West Tennessee, that there's firms being selected from that region to make sure that we kind of spread the wealth?
Yeah, so the Building Commission policy basically, and when it started in selection of designers, it initially was broken into 3 grand divisions. And so you had to go to those first, then you would go to statewide, and then you could go out of state. And so we push real hard for that. So in the design community understands that. But we understand because if there was a special project, you may have a designer crossover in one of the grand divisions. Some of those lines, Cookville, kind of can be either one or the other. But we do, and we work a lot with the State Building Commission on the selection of those designers. And so that we make sure that we spread those projects. And that's why we have, about one per project, but they are based per region and usually East, Middle, and West.
Again, beautiful. Thank you.
Good discussion.
Dick
sorry.
No,
Go ahead.
This is
I'm
Regent
sorry.
Gill, Dick or Jeff, whichever one's appropriate. Help me. I enjoyed the questions by Todd, by Regent Kestner, but I'm still a little fuzzy. Are you holding retainage on the contracts that the state holds directly with, whether it be a GC or a sub or whatever? Or is the state holding retainage directly?
That's yes. In our contracts, on our construction contracts, there's a 5% retainage that's held against each of the contractors. That is set up in a retainage account. It's their account, right? So they have to set up a retainage account. The money gets funded to them, so it's their money. They just can't get it until we release the retainage. What we'll do is at the end of the project, usually it's schematic. The SDP. If they request, we'll reduce that retainage from 5% to 2%. And then when they close out the project, and they request that, we'll release the rest of their retainage.
Okay. And are they then holding retainage on any subs or contracts that they have out? Do you know whether that's common within what's happening?
I believe that they do, and I think the way our general conditions are written, they pretty much have to treat their more or less they're subs like we treat them, so they can withhold the same amount from the subcontractors. That's been there's been a lot of friction between the generals and the subs on retainage. They've tried to pass and they passed some legislation to try to have some impact that I think, but that's outside of us. We'll release it, and when they release it back to the subcontractors is, it's kind of outside our hands, but they do withhold retainage from their subs.
Given the economic environment now, and especially the construction industry, because there's still huge demands on it, and yet there's also, people that are in tough spots and folks that are having a hard time staying solvent. We have always felt that retainage is so much better than bonds, and that one of the ways to keep a project from really going deep south is by having plenty of retainage held on it. And I appreciate that you all are addressing it in that manner.
Yeah, we require the bonds, but we also do hold the retainage throughout the project. We also will hold outside retainage. We make sure they deduct for incomplete or non-compliant work too. So, because that doesn't go directly in punch out work, we hold that during completion outside the retainage also.
I think something else along those lines, not retainage, but contingency, something that we're really emphasizing with all these CMs is we're bringing them on early. Traditionally, they come on board at the end of design development when, a lot of the more substantial decisions have already been made. Well, they're coming on the team during schematics. And we emphasize to them, in fact, part of the RFP addresses how they're going to inform the design team as they are conducting their running estimate, I'll call it, which is a continuous estimating process. So they'll initially price maybe the structure, the mechanical. They may add a contingency based on how comfortable they are with getting good prices. And then that contingency will slowly be reduced as the packages get developed. But it'll be a running estimate. So they'll be estimating in stride so that we continue to, as with these early release packages, they're going to lock in with the GMP on some of those early release packages. So we're going to chisel away at the budget, so to speak. So they understand that they're not going to wait on everybody to put pencils down on the design documents and then them take 30 to 60 days going out and trying to get prices. It's going to be in stride as the design is being developed.
Guys, I'm really impressed. You all have obviously are seeing a lot of the board. There's a whole lot out there to see nowadays, but I'm really impressed with the approach you're taking.
Good questions, good discussion. Is there anything else? It's very exciting times. And Jeff, maybe when we're at the central office and Chancellor for our board meeting in December, we could see your war room, the nerve center of all of this, if you don't mind.
I think it's very impressive, and everybody needs to see where he's working and what he's doing.
Excellent.
I'll clean it up real well for you.
That's okay. No.
Does it look like an air traffic controller? It looks like a general's war room is exactly what it looks like. And I have to say, while Dick and Jeff are the lead on this, we've got Angela and the entire crew and facilities that are on this every single day. And I just can't brag on that team enough. They are nonstop.
And
y'all
Jeff,
can't go out and start your own business after this just because you have all this experience. You're not going anywhere.
So I think Jeff's on tour. He's going to East Tennessee to talk with some veterans. Is that correct, Jeff?
That's correct. East Tennessee State. Yeah, a couple of stops.
Excellent.
I think
excellent.
Happy Veterans Day, guys.
Absolutely.
Jeff, you're going to Northeast State also, aren't you?
Yep.
I think McCord has been announcing that. So.
Yep.
That's great.
There. Gonna stop by an elementary school and talk to some youngsters, which is personal opinion. That's vitally important to kind of plant that seed early on. But yep, and happy Veterans Day to all our veterans.
Yep. Good work. Thank you. You guys make us all proud. Thank you. With that, Dr. Reed, I believe, is up next. She's got a couple of informational updates for us around academics and a policy revision. And just as a note, as we go through some other policy revisions this morning, remember too, you've had a chance to read this. Please ask your questions today. These may well, all or in part, be on our consent agenda when we convene in December. So, Dr. Reed, after that outstanding presentation from the facilities team, why don't you bring us up to date on a couple of important things you guys are working on?
Thank you, and good morning, Vice Chair Reynolds, Regent Apple, Chancellor Titans, and members of the board. As part of Chancellor Titans' vision for expanding and elevating our engagement workforce partners across the state, TBR will be hosting its first annual advisory workforce convening that will engage Tennessee's industry partners, TBR college presidents, members of the board, the ECD team, and members of the administration and General Assembly on April 22nd, 2024 at TCAT Smyrna from 10 a.m. to noon, followed by lunch. Next slide, please. At that convening, we will be focused on the leading industries in Tennessee. So we'll be inviting partners in the areas of advanced manufacturing, agriculture, business, information technology, healthcare, and transportation and logistics. Next slide. The convening process will actually be led through a charrette. While charrettes are known very commonly in the business industry, I think it's great that it actually started in education. If you have not participated in a charrette, it is really just a planning process for how you gather ideas and feedback from diverse stakeholders. Charrettes tend to be facilitated processes that are structured and timed so we can get all the input at one time in a very organized way. I love the history of the charrette. It is simply a word derived from the French word for little cart. And in Paris, back in 19th century, professors would literally circulate their little carts and students would add finishing touches to their projects and jump on the charrette to do that. And that's what happens in a real charrette. Everyone participates and jumps in and adds their ideas, and all of that input should lead to a planning process. Next slide, please. We will be highlighting a variety of stakeholders, again, CEOs and other high-level leaders from those 6 industries will be invited. Of course, our partners from the Tennessee Chamber of Commerce, legislators, a variety of other organizations. And again, we're looking to accommodate about 144 participants at our spring charrette. Next slide. So what are the outcomes of this workforce convening? There are three key goals that we want to accomplish. One is to really lean in and listen to our industry partners and get their expertise on how we can better prepare our students for workforce and economic mobility. Secondly, this is an opportunity for TBR, work with all of our industry partners and other organizations to strengthen our communication and our collaboration with the system office, as well as with our TBR institutions. And of course, our third outcome is always ensuring we're workforce ready, learning from them of any opportunities to enhance our programs, from integrating essential skills into the curriculum to ensure graduates continue to be ready for emerging needs in the workforce. Next slide. So this is a tentative agenda, so you can see how the event will go. It will be from 10 to 12 is the actual charrette. We're looking at the chancellor to open it up with a welcome. We'll be reaching out that hopefully the governor can provide a video in response. I will actually talk the group through the charrette process in case people have not participated in one. We would then actually spend 70 minutes in the actual charrette, followed by key highlights by each industry where they will share kind of the emerging findings that came out of those strategic conversations during this event. We're looking to have Commissioner McWhorter close us out. The actual convening itself is 2 hours, and then we will have lunch so we continue to engage and network with all of our partners. But that way they're free to move or leave if they need to. We have a very comprehensive team that will support this workforce convening. We will have industry facilitators that will move from each area. We will actually be inviting our presidents from the TCATs and the community colleges to serve as table facilitators. Every table will have its own facilitator and recorder so that we capture all of the input that we get from our partners at this event. We will look for VPs to serve as recorders to capture that. All of the findings from the charrette will actually be captured in a high-level document at the end of the process so that the system and the colleges can use that to refine our work, our collaboration, and our programs. And again, each process will be 70 minutes for the actual charrette based on their industry. Next slide. So regardless of which industry they're representing, they will all be answering the same charrette questions, but from their perspective. So agriculture will be asking this from one area versus healthcare. These questions are still tentative. Russ and his team are working on refining so that we truly find out what are the things we need to hear from our partners, from CEOs of these leading industries. And again, that is what will be the facilitated part of the conversation so that we walk away with what are the trends, some emerging findings that we need to pay attention to, and how can we strengthen our work from every industry by these shared questions. Next slide. I want to highlight the co-chairs of the planning team. Dr. Kim McCormick is working with me, as well as Dr. Russ Deeding. A lot of the details is how we make the sausage. I just want you to show up and eat off the plate. But again, it's a great team that's doing a lot of great work to make sure this is a really successful event. Next slide, please. There will be training for all of the support team. I want to make sure all of our presidents and vice presidents who are serving as support for the event understand the focus of this workforce convening, what a charrette process it itself. In case they haven't gone through it, they will get trained for being a facilitator and a recorder. And again, our team is working on all the logistics and the materials for the event and the resource documents that we want to provide as takeaways for all of our guests. Next slide. And again, just a high level planning schedule. We start in October as the chancellor had a vision for bringing the entire state together around a workforce convening so that TBR continues to be the voice around workforce development. Again, we're working with the co-chairs to continue the planning. We wanted to give a high level update to you all today so that you can save that date of April 22nd on your calendars. We will be working in early spring to send out invitations and continue ongoing planning. We have been very intentional to make sure that SOAR happens first as our highlighted event from TBR in the spring, and that this comes after SOAR. So that will be staggered to make sure SOAR remains the priority, followed by the convening. And then again, we will all gather on April 27th at TCAT Smyrna for the actual workforce convening. Next slide. At this time, if we have any questions or feedback, I would like to open that up.
And we do from Danny.
I'm so excited. This is so cool. I actually know what a charrette is, and I facilitated one 18 years ago with tremendous attention and attendance from all over the country. And people, first of all, when you call something a charrette, they piques their interest and they're like, oh, what is this? But I just love the format. Very excited. I was so surprised and then excited. So would any of us be allowed to just attend, or are you kind of poo-pooing that?
You're all invited.
Okay. Okay. I can't wait.
But that having been said, and I share Danny's excitement, do you have enough space and do you have enough time to do what you want to do?
Yes to both questions.
Okay.
Okay. Well, awesome. Great idea and great your execution, the way you're doing this is fantastic, and I can't wait. This is really cool.
Well, and I just have to jump in and say thank you to Jothany, Kim, and Russ. Literally, I had a thought, a kernel of a thought, and I threw it on the table, and immediately they started putting the plan together. And so I'm so proud of the work that they do every single day. But like you, Danny, I'm really excited about this. I think this is going to be a piece of the puzzle that we've just not had some of this information. And this is a way for us to go about doing this. Jothany actually had some experience doing something similar to this when she was in Texas. So she had a little bit of a roadmap that she's drawn from. But the three of them have sat down and really put the plan into action. And so I can't thank them enough.
Yeah.
That is great. We do. Oh, I'm sorry, Danny, go ahead.
I just said, I can't wait. I've got it on my calendar.
Okay. It's very fun. Regent Powers is asking, does the transportation logistics include construction related programs?
Yes, it will. And we're still working out. Kim will be the lead on which groups we need to invite from all of those industries. So if you have any particular input or individuals that you think would be essential to be at the charrette, please share that with myself or Dr. McCormick. But yes, those are broad topics, kind of headers, and then we'll look at some key areas and leading CEOs in those industries to engage with.
To which Regent Powers says, yay. Okay. Anybody else? Very exciting, as Danny said. And I think you've got another exciting announcement for us as well.
Great, thank you. A key goal for TBR that has been articulated by the Chancellor is that we want to increase the number of registered apprentices being served by TBR-sponsored apprenticeship programs. In response to the Chancellor's charge, TBR has established the new Center for Apprenticeship that will elevate and expand the system's capacity to support apprenticeships through partnerships with our community colleges and our TCATs. And this center is a collaboration between Academic Affairs and the Center for Workforce Development. Our focus together is on ensuring a comprehensive approach to scaling up apprenticeships as they play a prominent role in the state of Tennessee's efforts to strengthen the economy, improve economic mobility, and create new and expanded career opportunities through a flexible and proven development strategy that can grow talent for employers. As a refresher, apprenticeships are a form of workforce training that is collaboratively developed between the employer and the college and includes two components: 2,000 hours of on-the-job training with a minimum of 140 hours of related technical instruction. Next slide, please. The Center for Apprenticeship will collaborate and provide support to our TCATs and our community colleges in 4 key areas. One is in the space of being a hub around marketing, where we will highlight student and and employer success stories around apprenticeships. Secondly, we want to be a hub for resources for the colleges, whether that's creating briefs and graphics to articulate the process of starting an apprenticeship. We're available to do training with employers to make the apprenticeship process more seamless. And we also have other tools at zero cost to the colleges, such as swag to give to employers when they meet with them. And you will see a high-level video that we have created to really promote the new Center for Apprenticeship to all of our stakeholders. Third, we have been focused on the last 3 years, bringing in more additional funding to support apprenticeships. We were here in a moment, have we brought in close to $3 million that goes directly to the colleges to expand their apprenticeship models. And we want to continue to highlight different ways to bring in funding so that we can continue to grow in this area. And the fourth goal of the Center for Apprenticeship is awareness. And a lot of that work will happen through our partnering with statewide groups for awareness and promotion. As a good example, we have partnered with the Department of Agriculture and the Forestry Association and spoken at several of their meetings and their national conference around apprenticeship models and been willing to provide training so employers can engage with our colleges. At this time, I'm going to ask our Assistant Vice Chancellor, Zachary Adams, who's in academics and is our lead for the center, to share some key highlights of the center's success. Zachary?
Thank you, Dr. Reed, and good morning, Vice Chair Reynolds, Chancellor Tidings, and Regents. If you'll move to the next slide, please. As Dr. Reed was providing you an overview or a refresher of apprenticeship, one of the reasons we've seen tremendous growth in this area is apprenticeship is a proven strategy for both recruiting and retention of employees. And in fact, companies see a 44% return on investment. So for every dollar they spend on an apprentice, they see a 44% return. As a part of our work in supporting colleges and helping educate employers on what an apprenticeship is and how it can help them meet their recruitment and retention goals for employees, we've seen some pretty remarkable success over the last couple of years. First, there's been double-digit growth in this area. We've seen 26% growth in first-time apprentices year over year. Apprenticeships are being offered at a majority of our colleges. And one of the center's goals is to continue to expand apprenticeship as a training option and as a collaborative partnership for colleges to offer to employers in their service area. I would like to highlight a very strong partnership between Northeast State Community College and Eastman Chemical. They have a long-standing partnership with Eastman Chemical through their Regional Center for Advanced Manufacturing. And in fact, it is the largest apprenticeship in the system. Last year, they served 258 Eastman employees. So these are individuals who are upskilling or reskilling and continuing to simultaneously work at the company, which is a huge perk for a company like Eastman that has to be constantly thinking about their supply chain and the ways in which they can efficiently fill jobs and meet the demand of their industry. Last year, as a result of the funding that we've been able to secure and really the expertise that our colleges have in working to expose employers to new training models like apprenticeship, 13 colleges started or expanded apprenticeship. So we saw that at 8 of our community colleges and 5 of our TCATs. As Dr. Reed mentioned, we've secured just under $3 million in funding. That's in large part due to a very strong partnership with the Department of Labor, who provides us with funding each year to distribute directly to colleges that then go directly to students to help offset the cost of apprenticeship training. One of my favorite aspects of the center is the ability to start new apprenticeships in new industries. So apprenticeship is a model that's flexible and can be used across industries. And we've been collaborating with the Tennessee Forestry Association and the Department of Agriculture to start the state's first logging apprenticeship. We have been working with the UT system and their Grow Your Own Center to strengthen their teacher apprenticeship, and then also create a teacher assistant apprenticeship to meet the need and demand for both teaching assistants and teachers in our school systems across the state. And we're also working to take the Floor Covering Education Foundation, which is a critical advocacy group for the nation's floor covering industry. That's vinyl or luxury vinyl tile, hardwood carpet, which has developed an apprenticeship that we are looking to replicate in Tennessee to meet the demands of that industry. So as you can see, this center has really provided us with the opportunity to both support and grow a new form of partnership to meet the state's workforce needs and provide and strengthen the ways in which our colleges are already partnering with industry. Next slide, please. We have a video to share with you. We're very proud of the way that this video highlights how our colleges are working with employers and the benefits of apprenticeship. So if we could play that video with sound.
You didn't master your job overnight. It took time and energy. There were people who believed in you. You had to explore, ask questions, learn with your hands. Everything that helped you succeed can be imparted to others through an apprenticeship, so you can take your business further. Reach out to the TBR Center for Apprenticeship to get started.
So my final words for this morning are, and I hope you saw this in that short video, that apprenticeship offers employers a way to give back to their employees, to both take the very technical and advanced skills that they've mastered over their entire careers, and then work collaboratively with our colleges to train the next generation of employees. Thank you very much. Nope. And I know Dr. Reed and I would be happy to entertain your questions this morning.
Regent Varlin.
Yes. I've got two things. First of all, how can the Board of Regents help you, or can we? And because I mean, in my life and people that I'm around, I know some businesses that I could recommend that you reach out to that are, some are huge, some are smaller, but I've got some contacts. Do we contact you? Who do we let know?
Well, we love to facilitate those connections for our colleges. And so we would certainly be happy to take those names and contacts down and have some exploratory conversations on how the center can help meet their workforce needs.
All right, can you put your contact information on chat or send it to us, or who we're supposed to let know? Because I would love to be able to contact and have a conversation with you about some of these.
Yes, ma'am. I'll put it in the chat, and then I'll work with Mariah on the best way to get that out formally.
Perfect. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Oh, go ahead. Is that Miles?
It is. Why do you think Eastman's so successful with apprenticeships?
One of the first conversations that colleges have with employers when talking about apprenticeship really has to be that education piece on what an apprenticeship is. It's a very new training model for individuals or company leaders across the state. And Eastman has some connections across the world, particularly in Europe, that understand the rich history of apprenticeship. And so it was a very natural partnership for the folks at the Regional Center for Advanced Manufacturing at Northeast State. I will say that Mr. Blake Montgomery and Ms. Christy Sales, who work at the Regional Center for Advanced Manufacturing, are day in and day out working with companies to pitch apprenticeship, and the results you saw there are really the fruits of their labor to provide that training option. And what we've seen with Eastman and with other companies is once they start an apprenticeship with a handful of employees, they quickly see the benefits because they're able to have the person working and learning at the same time. And then you really start to see numbers jump in terms of enrollment.
Well, I'll add to that, Zach. You've got Eastman gets it, and their leaders who've been working on this for many, many years.
Yeah, long time.
On this Zoom right now, Jeff McCord, Heath McMillan, Jeff Frazier, Jeff Fain, list goes on and on. Of those people, they get it. And,
yes, sir.
They're able to continue to get Eastman to participate. But you're exactly right. Other companies in this region are now understanding what the value of apprenticeships.
Perfect.
Danny, was that you again? Sorry. Anyone else?
That was a mistake.
Okay.
I love to raise my hand.
Very exciting on all counts. Thank you, Zach.
Yeah, good job.
Exactly. We look forward to hearing more. Dr. Reed?
Great. Thank you. And thank you, Zachary. Next slide, please. I'm bringing to you today revisions to policy 2.03.01.05, which is approval of academic retention and readmission to TCATs. The policy revision before you will require action, and it is proposed by TCAT Memphis in response to business and industry needs. TCAT Memphis is the only TCAT in the state that offers this avionics maintenance technology program, and thus will be the only college impacted by the requested change. The revised policy addresses the minimum grade standards for the courses in each term for this program, and you'll see the highlight at the bottom. This was triggered by some skills assessment gaps and the need to meet competencies for the avionics career pathway. The policy change essentially moves the grade standard for a passing grade of 60, which is a D, up to a 73, which is a C grade. As it only affects one college, this revision is being presented for action immediately rather than through the typical review process that can take several months. The Academic Affairs Subcouncil has already approved this policy change on October 25th. The Faculty Subcouncil approved it on October 27th, and the Presidents approved it on November 1st. And so we're bringing it before the board to approve it to make that one change for TCAT Memphis. Regent, that's it unless we have any questions.
Is it my recollection that the reason for the C's on both of these important programs is a C is all the FAA requires? Do I remember that correctly?
That, and for them, it had been a D for years, but as they did some gap analysis and how people were doing, they realized they needed to make it a little more rigorous. So they're bringing it up to a C from a D as they've gotten feedback from their advisory committee that will probably enhance the competencies if students were passing at a higher level.
Okay. Anybody touching an airplane, I'm all for a B average, but anyway, it's not mine to decide.
How about an A?
No, exactly.
It's so, like healthcare. Oh, no.
Exactly. So, Dr. Reed, we'll see this then on our consent agenda, correct?
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you. Anything else? Not that you haven't had plenty of good things going on this morning, but anything else for us today?
That's my last report for today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Indeed. Vice Chancellor McCormick and Matthew, I think, are up next with some marketing policies, which appear to, on the surface, be designed to help us streamline, and make some things more uniform in our efforts.
Yes. Well, good morning, Vice Chair Reynolds, Chancellor Tidings, and members of the board. And also, I want to say Happy Veterans Day to everyone. I'm pretty proud of the one in this house as well. So this morning we will go over, preview what we will be presenting during the External Affairs Committee meeting in December. But first, I want to tell you that we are in process of revamping and expanding the Center for Workforce Development, and that is working hand in hand in partnership with the Office of External Affairs and the Center for Apprenticeship. But I'll tell you what it's like working with Jothany Reed. What you need to do is just put your roller skates on, strap yourself to her belt, and go along. And that's how it works. So she's amazing. So we're going to be really excited to let you all know at a later date what we're doing with that center. But this morning, I will tell you that during the External Affairs Committee meeting, we will be doing an overview of the annual system-wide fundraising report. Assistant Vice Chancellor Chris Perkins will be doing that for you. He is on his way back, or he would be here this morning, from Dyersburg State, where he went up to present the Chancellor and Regents Award. He said it was a wonderful event, as always, and he got to have a wonderful visit there. Also, in December, we will be presenting the revisions to marketing policies, and I would like to call on Associate Vice Chancellor Matthew Gann to present those to you this morning. Matthew, are you here?
I am. Thank you, Dr. McCormick, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for allowing me to join this morning. So before you, Carol, I think we have a list of those policies to display. Thank you. Before you is a series of marketing and communications policies, and these are based on current operations as well as requests from campus chief marketing officers and other business units on campuses and at TBR to address some existing and future marketing and communications related needs. These policies have been reviewed and presented to the community college chief marketing officers, the TCAT marketing group, the IT subcouncil, the business affairs subcouncil, as well as the president's council. And so there are 6 total policies. 3 are brand new, which are the overarching marketing and communications policy, the social media policy, and the web policy. And 3 of these expand or replace existing policies. The branding and trademarks policy replaces current policy 10301.10, the TBR branding policy. The publications policy replaces G140 publications, and the advertising policy replaces 4.06.00.00 expenditures of state funds for paid advertising. And additionally, the mass communications policy that was approved at the March board meeting will be renumbered to be within these policies. So the future policy will be 9010600. And I'll provide just a little bit of context on these before I open the floor for questions and comments. And I think it's prudent to actually say a few metrics here, especially concerning the demographic cliff. And so the traditional age students will peak that we have in 2025 and then decrease. So those high school going students or college going students coming from high school, again, that number will peak in 2025 and then it'll decrease. The percentage of 18 to 24-year-olds choosing to attend college reached its peak years ago, and only a third of Americans think college is worth it or have confidence in it. And so the private institutions, based on all this, will go after traditional university students. The land grants will go after regional populations. The regionals will go after the community colleges and the TCATs. So I think it's important in this adventure that we're having here with the marketing communications policies to actually provide some standards. And so as noted in the overarching policy itself, effective marketing and communications is crucial to the system offices and our college's capacity to attract and retain students, faculty, staff, and secure resources for its fundamental mission, and to preserve the support and backing of all of our stakeholders. And that includes alumni, donors, legislators, and overall the general public. We know there are challenges ahead, as I mentioned, especially the upcoming demographic cliff and the increased competition. And so these policies seek to align marketing and communications efforts with TBR standards and quality, and mature the marketing and communications functioning at the system office, at the community colleges, and at the TCATs. And equally critical is risk management. A single tweet, a post, an advertisement perceived in the wrong light can have a lasting repercussions on a college's reputation, or in some cases, the ability to receive federal funding. And so we can mediate these risks by setting some clear guidelines, which are in these policies, approval chains, and detailing authority for approving publications and advertising and other items through the policy. Now, the policies are flexible enough to fit the unique needs of each college because different areas of the state require some different things, but these policies offer really a general framework to encourage the consistency in how we present ourselves and we share our achievements and interact with the communities we serve. So with that, Vice Chair, Chancellor, I'm open to questions, comments, and suggestions.
Folks, anything? I see Regent Varlin's hand is up, I believe.
I'm just on it today. This isn't really about the policies, but it made me think about this. We had the great presentation about the capital projects and all that is going on. Mm-hmm. And it's probably just me, Matthew, but I can't remember what the marketing, do we have a marketing plan that is going along with what we're doing? I mean, I don't know if we build it, they will come, or maybe I just don't know. Maybe I just hadn't heard it, and which is probably what it is. But is there something in the plans for that?
Yeah, we actually, and this is something interesting I tell people all the time, we work a lot behind the curtains. So a lot of the things you see through other programs and through other presentations, we are behind that. And so in a lot of the cases, and I think you've heard this before, especially in your previous work with the donor relations, we're very targeted with the limited budgets and the limited capacity that we have from a system level. And so a lot of what we do is digital, and it's targeted for specific populations. And so last year we targeted adult learners that did not have necessarily any sort of college. And so if you would have received that ad, I would have been kind of upset because that would have been wasted money. And so we do have a plan. And so we do have a plan with this. But sometimes we actually go with general awareness and perceptions. And so in previous campaigns, the Career Start Here, which we did very aggressively several years ago, that was running. And that was just general awareness for the population of Tennessee. Yeah. We did not necessarily target a specific population. And additionally, I think a couple board meetings ago, we presented Trucking Tennessee, which was a special allocation from the state. That has been extremely well received, very successful campaign. We've got a little bit more money left in that. But again, that's very targeted. You've probably seen some general awareness pieces like some billboards, but again, very targeted on digital and trying to get those inquiry forms and working with Office of Student Success for that. But generally, from the system perspective, we work with Office of Student Success and our campuses to kind of see what is the need in that area. This next year, again, we'll be targeting adults. We're going to finish up with the Trucking Tennessee campaign. We have a special allocation for correction officers, and we're going to be kicking that off hopefully by the end of December. And so, yeah, we have an overarching plan based on what available funds we have and what the college's needs are.
I can piggyback on that and tell you that, as Dick mentioned in his presentation, we are starting the PR plan, even though it's going to be a ways out before we start having ribbon cuttings and groundbreakings. We are working on that right now, and we are starting with the governor's office, obviously, to see what his schedule is and in which of those particular campuses he would like to be involved with. Second thing, though, is one of our strategic initiatives that we proposed to THEC that looks like is going to be picked up when they have their their commission meeting in November. We asked for $3.8 million recurring, and that money will do a couple things. One, it will expand marketing opportunities across the whole system to be able to pull students into those technical programs. We've talked about the fact that we've been given $1 billion to build out these state-of-the-art facilities, and we need to be able to promote the programs, recruit students into those programs, and to train them as well. So a big portion of that funding will go toward that. So we will be able to expand the offerings available through Matthew's department, We will also be able to expand the training that we will be doing through the Center for Workforce Development. I'm kind of giving up some information we were holding for later, but I do want to tell you that there's definitely a plan in place. And
it just seems like such a great opportunity. You know, we've invested, you know, especially you're talking about the governor, we invested this much. Now, you know, come and see, come and take part in this kind of thing. It's a great opportunity because everything is just going to be so new and cool and up to date. So I knew about all the things like, man, you know, the Tennessee truck and all that stuff, but I was thinking more specific with this opportunity for what's happening. So I appreciate your letting me know that.
Yeah, our plan is to build regional public, basically teams, one per grand division. That will include people who are basically experts in marketing and PR promotions, people who are training experts, partnering with academic affairs to bring in people who are industry cluster curriculum experts, all serving per grand division so that the colleges and the businesses and industries in those divisions have a go-to team that they can work. So it's going to be exciting work.
And this work is going to be done in concert with the Economic Development Department. So we're pretty excited about it.
Yeah. Right. Well, I didn't mean to bust your bubble. Sorry.
No,
No.
And to partner with those regional ECD developers. Hopefully they will serve on the teams as well. We haven't had that conversation yet with, or Chancellor hasn't had that conversation yet with ECD, but I have a strong feeling that they're going to want to partner with us.
Okay.
Chair Lady Reynolds, that completes what we presented this morning, unless there are any further questions.
Thank you. Anything else, folks? All right. Thank you, Kim. We'll look forward to Danny's committee meeting in December and learning more. Dr. Fox.
Good morning.
Good morning. Help me get back on time, not to rush you, but we have audit following this, although these are important topics, I know.
Yeah, so mine is very short. So good morning to you all, members of the board. And today I don't really have a lot on the agenda. I was just going to let you know what you have to look forward to in December. So on the finance side, I'm going to be bringing the revised October budgets for your review and approval. No surprises here. That's a routine item that we always bring to the December board meeting. So you have that to look forward to. So you'll be getting copies of those mail outs in your materials, and then we will review and approve those revised budgets. Additionally, I will be going over the THEC 24-25 recommendations for the operating capital outlay, maintenance, and special initiatives. Their commission meeting is scheduled for November 15th and 16th. So that is why I'm not presenting a preview today. So once they have their meeting next week, we'll have some official recommendations that I will go over with you all at that time. As a brief side note, the financial performance presentation that has typically been on the December agenda in the past, we are going to be moving that to March. So we will present that at the March board meeting. Again, the December agenda is a little tight historically anyway, and due to some changes in additional GASB standards and things like that with the financial reporting and financial statements, it's really kind of crunched the deadline to have those ready to present in December. So we think it'll be much more meaningful to do that in March with the group. So just a side note there, that will be coming in December, March board meeting. Personnel and comp. For the personnel and comp side, we will be bringing, if you'll recall at the June board meeting, you all approved the compensation strategies that allow institutions to submit any salary adjustments that they would like to do using locally uncommitted funds, institutional funds. So the campuses have submitted those to the system office, and we are currently reviewing those, and we'll be bringing those in front of the board for approval if we have any that are being recommended for approval. Again, these are institutionally funded adjustments above what the across the board or comp plan increases they did with the state funding that we received in appropriations. So they had the option to recommend an across the board increase. So if they wanted to do an additional across the board increase for employees, or if they wanted to make additional compensation plan adjustments. So we have received a few of those. Again, reviewing them, we will bring those to you as is customary at the December board meeting. And finally, we will be bringing, the academic affairs team will be bringing some faculty emeritus recommendations, and the finance side of the house will be bringing the financial component associated with those faculty emeritus recommendations. And that was pretty brief. I went a little fast, but I will be happy to answer any questions about any of those items. Again, more to come in the materials and at the December board meeting, but those are our general topics we'll be covering.
Very good. Regent Powers or White, anything from you guys as chairs of these two committees?
Nothing from me.
No,
Thank
nothing.
you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Alicia. You
You're
always
welcome.
talk fast.
Sorry.
That's why, I'm just kidding. You and Danny, he was a fast talker too. So
Well, hopefully this time it helped.
There you exactly. Thank you. We look forward to hearing more. Appreciate all you're doing. Mike Batson has a policy revision for us, an internal audit, I do believe.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Yes, this is a pretty simple change in this policy. We decided it was time to update it. The primary change we're looking at in this policy is to add the certification of Certified Information Systems Auditor as a certification, qualifying certification for the campus internal auditor positions. This will really help keep us in line with our current risk environment and the technical needs that we need to have on the campus. This will be in addition to the Certified Internal Auditor option and the Certified Public Accountant option for certifications. So we have recommended that that be added for the campus internal auditor positions. The Chief Audit Executive position will remain the same as CPA or CIA certification, so no change there. Also, we want to clarify continuing education requirements to align those with the different certification and certifying bodies. Before, our language is a little bit restrictive and a little bit confusing, so we just want to clarify that based on the different certifications that we allow. Beyond that, really just sort of cleanup of the policy, grammatical and other preferences in the policy. But again, this will be coming before you at the December meeting. If you have any questions on that, I'd be glad to answer those. It has gone before Business Affairs, the Audit Committee, and the President's Council previously also.
Miles, anything from your end on this as audit chair? You're good to go?
No, ma'am, all good.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Regent Reynolds.
You'll be up next. Anything for Mike,
Yes,
from
ma'am.
anyone else on this policy? Any clarification needed? Sounds like we are good. Thank
Great,
you.
thank you.
Chancellor, talk to us about December.
All right, it is going to be here before we know it.
Indeed.
In your materials today, you do have a draft of the December 12th board meeting agenda. We do look forward to hosting everyone at the central office, where again, we will have our holiday luncheon planned for board members immediately following the meeting. The meeting will start at 9:30 a.m. Central Time. So again, look forward to seeing everybody in person in December.
So very good. Anything from anyone else on the board? Well, this was a great start to the day. Thank you all. And don't forget also next Wednesday, 9:30 a.m., what I hope is a brief meeting. We will make good use of your time, but we will appoint the next president at the TCAT Dixon at that time. So we definitely need a quorum. Hold that time on your calendar for us. If there is no further business to come before the board or comments or questions from the board, we stand adjourned in committee chairs. And with that, Regent Burdine, I will hand the gavel to you, so to speak, for your audit committee meeting.
I've got it. Thank you for passing it.
Okay.
Good morning. As chair of the audit committee, I call the committee meeting to order. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. I will first check our audit committee members on the line, and then we'll confirm other regents who are either remaining on the line or who have joined. Regent Apple.
Here.
And let me back up. Again, since this is an electronic meeting, we will have to answer those two questions again. My apologies. As a reminder, those two questions are: can the regent simultaneously hear and speak with others participating in the meeting? And second, is the regent alone in the room? If the answer to both questions is yes, the regent can simply answer yes to both. Anyone who is not alone should identify any other people present in the room with the regent. When I call your name, please answer these two questions. If you don't mind, Regent Apple?
Certainly, yes to both questions.
Thank you. Chairman Burdine?
Here and yes to both.
Regent Kastner?
Yes to both.
And Regent White?
Here and yes to both.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum. I'll now check for other regents who may be on the line or who may have joined us. Governor Lee? Regent Garten?
Here.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Regent Gentile? Regent George?
Here and yes to both questions.
Regent Gill?
Here and yes to both, but I will be dropping off early.
Thank you. Commissioner Hatcher? Regent Hooper? Regent Pilkington?
Here and yes to both.
Regent Powers?
Here and yes to both.
Madam Chair Reynolds?
Here and yes to both.
Commissioner Reynolds? Regent Roberts?
Here and yes to both.
Regent Spurgeon? And Regent Varlin? Thank you. And Mr. Chair, we have what we need for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. This meeting is being held electronically as is the most economically efficient way, and the matters to be considered require timely action and review by the audit committee. Given that the necessity to meet electronically is a non-controversial and routine item, I propose that the necessity be adopted by unanimous consent. Anyone who wants to have individual votes on the necessity to meet electronically should feel free to object, in which case we will have a roll call vote. If there's no objection, the necessity to meet electronically is adopted. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the necessity is adopted. And we'll go right into information reporting. Mike, microphone's yours.
Thank you, Chair Burdine, and thank you, Regents, for attending today. I want to start out, as always, with the recommendation and finding logs on page 3. Again, continue to make improvement on some of the older recommendations, including 3 for Jackson State related to timekeeping that were getting quite stale. But with the vacancy there in internal audit, we worked with the staff at Jackson and were able to get the information we needed to close those 3 recommendations. I do want to say I appreciate Dana Nails, the CIO at Jackson, for her assistance in getting us access to that information very efficiently. Also related to other recommendations that we've cleared, Dyersburg, the recommendations related to athletics, I believe there was 4 of those that we've been able to clear with the vacancy there. We appreciate President Cook as well as Dr. Amanda Walker's assistance in getting us the information we needed to clear those recommendations. Again, just wanted to point out those 2 schools and clearing those. If there are any questions related to any of the recommendations on the logs, I'll be glad to answer those before I move on. Okay, next up, we'll start to cover audit reports and miscellaneous reviews. There are quite a few audit reports in the materials this time. There were 5 external reviews. I want to highlight 3 of those. First up was Chattanooga State Department of Human Services, a USDA Adult and Child Care Food Program audit. And this is related to their child care center. They have an employee and student child care center at Chattanooga State that covers children from 6 weeks to pre-K age, and it's coordinated with the Early Childhood Education Department at the college. There were 3 findings related to that. I want to point out those were more administrative, not programmatic or service related, more administrative things, misreporting between paid meals, assisted meals, and free meals. I think a difference of 4 there. Also information related to the menus. For example, they didn't report specific components of certain items like fruit mix, the components of that. And then the third one was related to frozen and commercially prepared meals on the menu, like say for lasagna. They did not list the specific ingredients for lasagna in the menu. So again, want to point those out. They did receive a billing notice of $295 related to those errors, but again, not service related, but just administrative issues there. Also at Chattanooga State, a Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation report. There were 3 issues there related to the storage and labeling of waste containers, say 55-gallon drums, 5-gallon drums. Those were corrected on site at the time of the review. They got the correct labels and storage on those. So again, those are cleared. Next up is Southwest. TSAC did a financial aid audit there. It included several recommendations and warnings and findings. Southwest did provide corrective actions and plans to TSAC, and those were approved by TSAC. Some of the issues were related to not requiring a certification of ACT scores when they were using ACT scores for HOPE students, also not having the proper transcripts or not requiring transcripts for certain students, and other different processes they had related to the scholarships and reporting there. Again, they provided a good plan for correcting those items, and TSAC did approve that plan. Are there any questions on any of those so far? Okay, great. Moving forward, some really good news. Comptroller's Office audits. There were 7 audits this past time. 6 of those received no findings, and I want to recognize Chattanooga State, Columbia State, Dyersburg, Motlow, Southwest, and Ball State for their audit periods had no findings from state audit. So that's always great news, and commend those colleges for their work there. Lastly, we had one college with 1 finding. Cleveland State only had 1 finding, and that was related to not preparing bank reconciliations timely. And they have a good plan for rectifying that. That should be fairly easy to correct, not a real complicated finding there. They have had a lot of turnover in that area, and so I think they've gotten reset and should be good to go for that area. Any questions on those? Be glad to answer. Moving ahead to federal audits, several federal ones that we want to cover. First, Roane State Department of Veterans Affairs. And I do want to mention Roane State has been kind of hit with Veterans Affairs and Department of Defense audits, I think, over the last couple of years. This one, they had 1 recommendation, 1 discrepancy, which is good news for them. It was relatively minor and something that was easy to fix there. Next up, Volunteer State had a U.S. Department of Labor OSHA review of their Training Institute Education Center, and Department of Labor commended Vol State for their work there, and so we want to mention that. They particularly noted that their capture rate for student evaluations was relatively very high at 95%, and Department of Labor went so far as to commend Vol State in their report for their work, and so we want to certainly recognize that. So great news for Vol State on a very big program there. Next up, we'll move on to internal audit reports. And again, several of those that we have to cover. First up again at Vol State. As you recall, we have been doing audits of HERF public reporting across the system, kind of finishing up that. We've only got, I think, one more outstanding, but Vol State's came in this time. They did have 6 recommendations related to the reporting. I do want to recognize that Vol State, in their business office and in personnel who were handling the reporting, they had quite a bit of turnover during the whole HERF reporting period, which really complicated matters. The 6 recommendations are relatively easy to fix. It related to reconciling the records to what was reported. The auditor was able to reconcile the information, so it's just a matter of adjusting what was reported to the reconciled information, using the incorrect format for some periods, the incorrect naming conventions. Department of Education changed naming conventions along the way, and Vol State did not pick that up. So they've got to go back and just a matter of renaming those reports. Also, some of their reports, they used cumulative expenses when they should have just shown quarterly expenses. So they'll need to go back and adjust those reports. Again, should not be too hard to do. But again, we didn't see anything related to any appropriate awards or anything like that. These were really just reporting issues and administrative issues that are correctable. And we do, going forward, want to make sure we get those things corrected for Department of Education, that we've got that correct. And again, Vol State is moving that way with those issues. Next up, TCAT McKinsey Veterans Affairs Benefit Certification. Again, as you know, we have been covering those first at the community colleges and now at the TCAT, so we're trying to finish those up. But McKinsey had one relatively minor recommendation in terms of having a independent person in the process reviewing the information before it is submitted. Moving on, I feel like I'm covering this kind of fast, so please stop me if you have any questions. An investigation at TCAT Murfreesboro, I want to highlight this one. We had received allegations regarding live work and that an employee in the collision repair technology program was buying cars and then having the students repair the cars so that they could turn around and resell those. We didn't find that was really a justified allegation. The employee had, I think, over a 2 to 3 year period, and Jennifer can jump in for clarification if we need to, sold 2 cars. That really didn't constitute an egregious violation of the policy or anything like that. It was not what was reported, that there was numerous cars coming in and out that he was selling. 2, in that program, the employees can have the cars repaired, so that didn't seem to be too big of a concern. However, in doing the investigation, Jennifer noted that the instructor, as he brought his own cars in, was sometimes changing the license tags on those, which, again, we don't get into the legal part, but that would be a violation of law. That would be problematic, I think, if he was pulled over. And so we recognized that as a concern there. Also, what we did find was that the TCAT was not really following their own processes, and their processes could have been better in terms of live work and approvals and who knew what was coming in. So we made recommendations there. And I do want to commend President Wade. He came in and really improved that process, straightened things out, and they seem to have a good path going forward there. So again, it really, in terms of the college and the president knowing what's coming in for live work and that it's approved and documented and appropriate, and we think they are good to go in terms of that recommendation. So, and we appreciate President Wade's help there. Any questions on that investigation? Okay, great. moving on, president's expense audits. And I always like to give a little background for our new regents, anyone else that's listening. We're required by state law to audit the chief executive's expenses for the year, and that can be the president's as well as the chancellor. All of higher education is required to do that. And TBR, we're a little bit unique. We're required to audit at least 30% because of our limited number of auditors and then the number of campuses. We're required to do 30% each year of the president's expenses. And those reports include any discretionary expenditures made by, at the direction of, or for the benefit of the president or chief executive. Anything that comes under their account, that is spent under their account, is subject to audit. We do a sample since we're doing 30%. First of all, we try to make sure everybody's covered at least once every 3 years. So it's a timing thing there. We also look at the amounts spent on different things, whether it's entertainment, travel, those kind of things. That will play it in as a factor, as well as any previous issues on other audits. Whenever I make the decision on which campuses we will audit. And fortunately, the last one has not been a factor. There have not been findings for quite a while. This is a relatively low risk area. It's been going on for 20 years. And so everybody, business offices and everybody kind of know what the lay of the land is and where the boundaries are and how to account for things and all that. So it's a relatively smooth process. This year we audited Cleveland State, Columbia State, Jackson, Northeast, and Pellissippi. Again, no findings, no recommendations on any of those. We always find some things that need to be tweaked in the response, but nothing that rises to the level of reporting it in a report. Just errors. They should have reported this in this account, or this number is incorrect. Really small issues there. So again, congratulations to those colleges and those presidents for again not having issues there. We're glad for that. Do want to say that expenses overall are kind of going up. Again, we saw, of course, a trend going down during COVID. That's kind of swinging back to where it was 3 or 4 years ago. So especially travel, those expenses are going up. We try to keep an eye on that, and we look at those quarterly. Interesting, business meals and hospitality went down a little bit. So not sure why that was, but went down a little bit there. And one factor that you see in looking at the differences in your materials, we have a couple of schedules that lay out those expenses, whether it's travel, other business meals, hospitality kind of things. One is campuses that host a board meeting will include those expenses in their materials in that information. So that's going to boost them up depending on what they spend related to the board meetings. But also we have variances between campuses in what the president includes in their account. For example, internal audit. In some cases, internal auditors travel or training may fall under the president's account. And so that's going to skew theirs a little bit. And we try to kind of give them some guidance on that, especially with internal audit. We've encouraged them to run that through your internal audit account. But from different business offices, everybody kind of does things a little differently, not anything wrong with it, but that does account for some differences where some president's accounts include a lot more information than others. Nothing wrong with that, but just to give you some perspective on why you see some different numbers there. That's sort of my summary. Again, I appreciate the auditors doing that. And we do, just for clarification, none of the auditors audit their own president. We do a schedule where we try to rotate. So I'm not auditing the chancellor. I might be auditing one of the other community colleges and vice versa. So we do rotate those. Yes, Regent Burdine.
Just saying thank you. Anything else?
Well, there's no questions.
These informational items come from our chief audit executive and require no action, but we'll move on to section 2, review of revisions to fiscal year 2024 internal audit plans. Mike?
Thank you, Regent Burdine. In your materials are the information on, let me see, did we skip? Let me see. Okay, we're on audit reports. I'm sorry, Regent Burdine.
I think we've got, we finished the informational reporting.
Okay.
We should be on section 1B.
Great. Audit reports and reviews. Again, I've covered the highlights there on those. If there are any audit reports or anything in the materials anyone would like more information on, I would be glad to answer those questions. Sorry about that, Regent Burdine.
Oh, you're fine.
Okay, thank you. Next up for information, system-wide internal audit updates. First, I want to cover our QAR, if you remember our quality assurance review, just to kind of give you a brief update. We're looking at developing a new or revising our audit checklist, which was one of the recommendations in there. We're going to send that out to the colleges this week. So we've revised that to kind of account for some of the things that the QAR reviewers noted. We're also still looking at the recommendation logs and whether or not we can tweak that. So again, just want to give you an update on a couple of those recommendations from our QAR report previously. Director of Internal Audit positions, we still have, unfortunately, 4 openings. I have heard we've had an applicant at a couple. Good news, I hate to say an applicant. I wish it was multiple. But in that regard, I've worked with April Preston here at TBR and our consultant on, for lack of a better term, salary surveys and salary studies. And we are hopeful that we can have a review of the salary plans for internal auditors, March, April timeframe. The consultant is going to go back and look at our revised job descriptions on those and see how those lay out within the plans at each of the colleges, to make sure they're aligned correctly in terms of salary. And hopefully some of those will go up. I think that's part of the reason we're not seeing many candidates is based on salary history there. So we are working on that. And we've encouraged a couple of the campuses to use a hybrid schedule versus 100% in person. Hopefully that will generate a little more interest. Just right now, everywhere you look, people want to work remotely 100%. That's not really feasible for these type positions. We want it to at least be hybrid, so we're trying to develop some flexibility there. And we are working with the campuses and the college presidents for anything they need. As I mentioned on the recommendations earlier, we're working with a couple on risk assessments and that kind of thing and providing them what they need with the vacancy in their auditor positions. Next up, we had our internal auditor conference. In the past, we've done this in conjunction with UT. They're kind of on their own the last couple of years. We did have auditors from Tennessee Tech present. We opened that up to all the LGIs as well as UT. We had a very good program this year. We had TBI's cybercrime unit come in and provide some great information also. We had John Hall, who's an internal audit sort of consultant, come in and do a presentation on high impact auditing. And then we had Rika Calhoun, who's the chief compliance officer at Florida A&M, did a presentation on ethics in higher education. So we were glad to have those. It was a very good program, and I appreciate our training committee for the work they did. But we had 3 very good sets of speakers, and that was excellent. We tried to provide that for the campus auditors so that they can get their continuing education in for their certification requirements, and that certainly helps get especially relevant training. You can go out and get free tax training, but we would rather have them have training related to our roles in higher education, and so we try to provide focused information there. that concludes my information on system-wide updates.
Any questions, comments, particularly about the shortage of auditors? Any suggestions for Mike? Mike, I've got a Marine I served with who wants to go back to work part-time. I'll send you his resume.
Great. Be glad to take a look at that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I think this section requires a roll call vote, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can I get a motion from committee member?
So moved, Mary Lou.
Thank you, Mary Lou. And a second,
And just
please.
my apologies. Just to confirm, do we need a vote for these informational items, or is this for the next section we're
I'm sorry.
to discuss?
It was the next section. I was reading ahead, Mariah. I'm sorry.
So, Regent
Okay.
Verdun, I think we're good for now.
Okay, good. All right. I was confused too. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you. Up next are the revisions to the fiscal year audit plans. Again, we're required to get your approval on those. Some of the issues there, of course, the vacancies. We're not doing revised audit plans for those with vacancies. We're trying to cover what we can through our office there. A few revisions, basically removing things and adding things based on priorities. For example, Chattanooga State has added the TCAT consultation, which they think is going to take a little bit of time. Southwest removed state audit follow-up since they didn't have findings, those type things. And as well as we've added investigations and risk assessment consultations to ours, just as fairly routine things, but investigations come up. And so we have to have that take something else's place and reallocate those hours. So again, nothing really out of the ordinary here that I really need to bring your attention to for those. And with that, Regent Burdine, I'll turn that back over to you for approval of these.
Okay, so now we do a roll call vote.
Yes, sir.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Tom.
Second.
Can I get a second? Okay, thank you. Any discussion? All right, Madam Secretary, if you'll please call the roll for the vote.
Regent Abel.
Aye.
Chairman Burdine.
Aye.
Regent Kastner.
Aye.
And Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Now we move on to the next section, a review of salaries and staffing for the Office of System-Wide Internal Audit. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Regent Burdine. As you know, the Audit Committee is required to approve the salaries of our office. No really significant changes here other than the cost of living increase from this past year. I do want to note the addition of the temporary investigative auditor position is now on your schedule, Daniel Porter. And while I'm on that subject, can't say to the Chancellor and Alicia and this group, thank you for that position. I think we're probably getting more than our money's worth out of Daniel, and glad to have him, but it's been a real help for some of the investigations we're working on. So continue to be appreciative of that. Again, if there are any questions on the salaries here, be glad to answer those. Otherwise, I will turn it back over to Regent Burdine for approval.
Thank you. Can I get a motion for approval?
Move for approval.
So moved. And second.
Thank you. And I'll take the other one. There's a second. Any discussion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll for the vote.
Regent Apple.
Aye.
Chairman Burdine.
Aye.
Regent Kastner.
Aye.
And Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam. And back to Mike for a review of salaries and budgets for internal auditors.
Thank you. The internal auditor for both the community colleges and the system office is presented here. It does not require approval, but it does require your review of the budgets and the salaries for the campus-wide, the system-wide auditors. Again, the average this year, of course, changed a little bit with the vacancies, went down a little bit because we recalculated that considering the vacant positions. That's the reason for the decline in the average salary for the campus positions. So again, we'll move on to the budget information. We like to provide this to you. And I'm sorry, I skipped over that one slide, but that just included our service years as well as certifications there for your information, as well as the salaries there. So again, informational purposes there. And then next to the operating and travel budgets for the community colleges as well as our office, we started presenting this to you a few years ago so that the committee has an idea of what the campuses are working with in terms of budget, and as well as what we have here. And again, we try to help them out, especially with training. Like I mentioned, the retreat earlier and some other trainings that we do to give them an economical way to get the required 40 hours every year. But if there are no questions, we can turn that back over to Regent Burdine.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? As an informational item, requires no action. So now this concludes our agenda for the public session. Unless anyone has any further business to come before the committee, the public portion of this meeting stands adjourned. Thank you everyone for your time. The public session